Hello, hello. Welcome to my show. My name is Joseph Mbele. I have a YouTube channel. I guess some of you know it, and you have heard me speak many times. I welcome you all. Today, I'm just going to play a video that I recorded on the 29th of September. It's a conversation I had with a guest, Lulu Kililuck, and we are talking about Africans and African Americans. Here is the show. Hello, hello. Welcome to my show. My name is Joseph Mbele, and I have these shows which I place on my YouTube channel. I deal with all kinds of things, talking about culture, globalization, education, books, writing, and so on. Occasionally, I have a guest on the show, and today I have a guest who has been on my show several times before, and her name is Lulu. I'll give her a minute to introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Lulu Kililuck, the author of Candy of Freedom, and I've been a frequent guest to this show. And as I always say, I'm always excited to be invited because there's always something new to talk about.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Lulu is a newly published author of a nice book called Candy of Freedom. And I'm very proud of what she's been doing. I'm glad I know her and I know her work. It's been a few months since we got to know each other. And I recommend the book she wrote, a very powerful memoir, full of lessons. She grew up in Cameroon. She was born in Cameroon, was raised there, and she talks about some very interesting experiences as a girl growing up in an African community. Yeah, I've enjoyed the book very much, and I know you will as well. Anything else you want to say about the book, maybe?
Well, just encouraging people to read it because it's a different style of writing, and it's from a different perspective than what people normally see in the market, in the reading marketplace. It's a little bit provocative.
It is. I was going to say,
Yes,
very provocative in a positive way.
But yes, in a very positive way. Yes.
I've enjoyed it. It challenges
Yeah.
a lot of assumptions about our culture. We are both African. I'm from Tanzania. She's from Cameroon.
Yes.
And I've also written my own books.
Yes.
In which I celebrate African culture.
Chicken on the bus.
And
chicken in the bus.
Yeah. But Lulu's perspective is very stimulating. She probes the issues and comes up with some rather startling insights. Yeah. And so I'm learning a lot from her, and I've been very privileged to work with her on her writing. She's doing another book, actually. I don't know when it will come out, but it's almost done, I would say.
Yes.
Almost.
Yes.
She works so hard. Absolutely. Anyway, that's a little bit of introduction. Today, I guess we agreed we could share ideas about a topic that is tricky, very tricky, controversial, sensitive, and we are ready to take the risk and discuss this topic. It's the relationship between Africans and Black Americans.
Yeah.
That's the way I framed it. It's a touchy topic, very touchy topic. And I know we have many Africans here in the USA. We know they have sometimes difficult relationships, with African Americans or other Black Americans, because some of them don't want to be called African Americans. Yeah, they say they are American, and so they don't, some of them are comfortable calling themselves African Americans. The relationship between Africans and African Americans, it's a difficult relationship.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. Maybe let me start this way. Have you had, your own experiences, with African Americans? You live here in Minnesota, I live here too. Are there some, general observations you would make if you have had such experiences?
I would say yes. There is an unspoken tension in the relationship, but it's not because we have each done something to each other. It is like we are approaching each other with so much caution that sometimes there's this unspoken tension because we are too cautious. And despite the fact that we are cautious, but we also have a lot of expectation of each other, because we have in our innate there's a natural relationship that you have with this person, though you don't know the person, and there's also some kind of expectation that you have of this person.
Yeah.
But you don't even know each other. You don't even know what your values are. But
yeah,
there was this. It's unspoken, but I am. For example, if it's a woman, I know she's my sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely, we agree. There are expectations on both sides, actually.
Yes.
On both sides. Largely because, we share the same skin color.
Yes, most likely, yeah.
Yeah, Africans come here, they see African Americans, they would say, "Hi, my brother," "my sister," that type of thing. And in my experience, they also tend to act that way towards us.
Yes.
I live in a town that's predominantly white. I teach in a college that's predominantly white. If I see a Black person, say an African American, you can see they acknowledge you.
Yes.
They acknowledge you, they smile, they greet you.
Yes.
There's that, they don't have to say anything, but you can see they acknowledge you, they enjoy seeing you there.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's one of the ways in which that brotherhood or sisterhood is expressed. But then, as you suggest, we do this without even knowing each other. And among the expectations are notions of, similar interests, maybe similar tastes, maybe we like the same things, maybe we think alike, maybe we respond alike to situations. And then when we interact, we come to realize we belong to different cultures.
Yes.
We belong to different cultures. We might not respond to situations the same way. We might not be aware of certain things around us. Like I say, I live in a predominantly white city, teaching in a predominantly white college. I have noted African Americans just assume that I'm very miserable there because I'm surrounded by all these whites. They assume that, my life is difficult because I'm minority. They use the word minority. They just assume that I'm struggling. And yet the reality is this: I am not struggling. I am really comfortable. And this is one of the issues we need to really look into. Why is that? And my idea is because of our background, growing up in Africa, and being in a place where everybody looks like us. Our self-concept is very different. We are almost like the center of the world. We see ourselves as the center of the world. My village, that's the center of the world. The way we define ourselves, the way we look at ourselves as black people, we don't even think of our blackness. It's just natural, it's normal. It's the white people who are the other. They're the ones who are, different. In
Yes.
fact, we have terms like in Swahili, we call them mzungu.
Okay.
Mzungu means white person, but it also connotes, somebody who is outside the norm in that sense.
Okay.
Because whiteness is not the norm. I know they have terms like that in West Africa. In Ghana, they say a brony or something like that. In Senegal, they have tubab.
Yeah, I know we grew up in we had many white, because we had many missionaries and some expatriates and Peace Corps. So the experience with white people wasn't really far-fetched, but they were not the norm. But if I take us back here, I want to talk about our relationship with our African American or Black American brothers and sisters. As we said, there are certain expectations that we do have of each other, but unfortunately, when we start to interact, we realize that we have different interests. And I was talking to an African American pastor, and when he asked me, then I was in school, like, what are you doing? I told him what I was doing in school. It's like, why do you Africans like going to school so much? We just keep going to school. And then, like I said, school, yes, education was used in both ways for the African Americans and for Africans. For Africans, it was a tool of slavery. They had to change us from who we were by bringing in their educational system. And we got stuck with it. Unfortunately for the African Americans here, they were refusing, they were rejecting them, sending them away from school. They were not accepting them. So you see that we are both, we are the same people, but we experience education differently. So normally we would have a different approach to education. Yes, we have a different approach. So that's why you go to the African community, everybody wants to go all the way to PhD. But while in the African American community, there are people who want to go up to PhD, but also what the advantage that they have in their own educational system is that they are exposed to other professions that we coming from Africa are not exposed to. So we follow this academic track, which is different, but they also follow their educational track, which is different from us. So they might see us, everybody going to school to become a doctor or something. It's like, what is going on with you people? There are other things that you can do, but because we are not, we don't know how to do it differently. So there's a lot we can learn from each other if we start to see and understand how we were brought up differently and how different things were used as tools for slavery or tools for colonialism. That's going to help us.
That's a tricky topic, and it's a bit unfortunate that education has been used. It was not even education much of the time. So, say in this country, from the time of slavery, to contemporary times, the kind of things that were taught, indoctrination into, what in this country they would call white culture, and the sense of rejecting, or looking down upon, the black heritage, the black history, the black values and things like that. So that the education was actually a form of conditioning. Conditioning people so they can function in the system which was not meant for the benefit of black people.
No.
That's what African Americans or black Americans will tell you. And so naturally there has been a tendency among many to resist, the whole idea of going to school, because it was not education as such. It was simply a tool to reinforce, the slave mentality.
Okay.
And so it's a very complicated story. It happened the same way in Africa. It happened the same way under colonialism.
Oh, yeah.
The colonial education, I don't even know if we should call it education. That conditioning, which made Africans accept, and celebrate, European.
A foreign culture.
Exactly. And African history, African values, African traditions were not, taught or even considered worth teaching.
Yeah.
So maybe that's an area where, black Americans and Africans, have something in common. That experience, maybe.
Yeah, I think we have a lot in common, but we just have different approaches.
Different approaches, yeah.
Yes, and it's because of the way we were introduced to those things.
Yeah.
Take, for example, religion. Religion came to Africa not as a tool of evangelization. It was a tool for colonization. And evangelization was just the blanket that they used to cover their intentions. Because when religion came into Africa, what did they do next? We cannot use our native names. No, that's evil. There was another system through which they were actually deconstructing our own values. So if you imagine that, okay, my name is Nayo, and said you could not baptize me with my name Nayo, I had to take a name John, Mary, Peter, Paul.
Yeah.
So it was also another, that was a tool for slavery that came in the guise of religion.
Yeah.
And most of them also came and started schools, and those school systems were still part of that tool for colonization.
Yeah.
So,
and in fact, that loss has been most intense in the African American experience, because the loss of names, the loss of culture, loss of identity, and completely being disconnected from where they came from in two ways. The first is the physical, disconnection, being taken out of Africa to the Americas, But then within the system now of the schools, the cultural institutions, the disconnection that you are talking about, being given foreign names, the slave masters' names,
just as we're having the colonizers' names.
Exactly. But at least in Africa, we remained in our villages. We remained in the location where our ancestors lived. If you are from Tanzania, you belong to a certain ethnic group.
Yes.
It has been your home for generations.
Yeah.
You were not uprooted from that home.
You're not uprooted, yes.
However, culturally and in terms of mindset, there was that uprooting.
Yes.
But at least you were in your home area, following your culture, your traditions.
Yes, following what was left of your culture.
What was left of your culture. Because the colonizer tried very hard to dismantle.
Yes.
Especially those elements of the culture that would lead to resistance against colonialism. I mean, elements that were not, antagonistic to colonialism, they were left, For example, you had your own chiefs. You know, the institution of chiefs, you know, chiefdoms, at least under the British, you know. The British, you know, did what they called indirect rule. You know, they left the Bamenda with their own chiefs. They left the Matengo. I'm Matengo.
Yeah,
Bamenda is the one of the Cameroonian ethnic groups, right?
Yes.
You come from a different one. It's called you told me it's a complicated story.
Yes.
Your father is different.
Yes, and my mom is different. So we're talking about giving their own chief. Leaving those chiefdoms did not mean they were not targeting them, because those chiefdoms have been slowly infiltrated by the administrative state. Yes. They have been slowly, now the chiefs are answerable to the administration rather to the population that they are all. Yes.
Exactly.
They're supposed to, yes. So they didn't leave anything, and even up to now they are still doing it. They didn't leave anything on them.
It was just the appearance.
Yes, an appearance
of being, you know, left alone, and but as you say, you know, they followed the dictates of the colonial system. The ceremonies were there, you know, the rituals were there, but the colonizer were monitoring. The colonizers were monitoring.
Yes, and looking for ways to infiltrate that system, and they have already done that.
And to use it again
against the people.
Exactly. For the benefit of colonialism. Yeah. Because the chief is the one who supervised the tax collecting, you know. Yeah, the chief is the one who ensured there was obedience to the colonialists, to the colonial laws. Yes. Those types of things. Yeah. One of the things that make the relationship between Africans and Black Americans really unfortunate and complicated is lack of understanding of history. Africans come here to the USA. Yes. And they see that African Americans, you know, behave differently, they have a different culture and all this. And we are not really together in that sense, as Americans say. Yeah. For example, the awareness of the Africans of racial issues is not, you know, the awareness that African Americans have. No, we do not have the same awareness as and Black Americans. We don't. And what follows, therefore, is a lot of misunderstandings, you know, in the sense of Black Americans being disappointed that we Africans appear naive, you know, or ignorant. Yes, we don't just appear, we are ignorant of some of those things, yes. And yet, it goes back to the historical experience. Yes. You know, in Africa, you said, you know, you had white people, you know, and we did too, but very few. You know, a teacher, a doctor, a missionary, and their presence was not overwhelming like it is here, you know, for the Black Americans. We were never a minority. Yes. Back in Africa, we were never a minority. Talking about, you know, racial identities and realities, we were not minority. And so our relationships with white people over there is not identical to the relationship between, you know, Black people and white people in the USA. It was more peaceful and harmonious back in Africa. Honestly, yeah. So we still carry that that view. Yes. 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 When I say peaceful and harmonious, I'm not talking about those who were there in the colonial time, because it wasn't harmonious. It's those who came later on as teachers, volunteers, religious, Peace Corps. There was this semblance of harmony. That's true. Yes. That's true. It was not antagonistic. No, it wasn't. With the end of colonialism and overt colonialism. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
So the Africans who come here today, after Africa has become independent, they come with that mindset.
Yes, they come with that mindset. Yes.
And so sources of friction, because of the different ways in which we interact with, say, white people.
We experience cultural shock when we're here, when we start experiencing racism.
Yeah.
And because we don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
It's something new to us. We are always like confused.
Absolutely.
Yes, we are confused about how to handle it, and
absolutely.
That's what makes us look naive and ignorant about it. Yes.
Yeah. And then the Africans, look at Black Americans and they wonder, why they appear to be so unfriendly, to the whites. Appear. I use the word appear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The African interpretation of what they see.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of things which are not clear in our relationships. Mm-hmm. There's misconceptions, misunderstandings. In fact, I look at the ignorance on both sides, Africans not being knowledgeable about the historical experience of African Americans, from slavery and what it was like, to the time after slavery and the civil rights struggles and ongoing discrimination. Africans are not fully aware or not fully capable of realizing or perceiving what's going on. Not fully capable.
This is just a good example. Like most of us who are here today, we do not even realize that we are here today because of the work that our African American brothers and sisters did.
Yeah.
We couldn't have come to this country if they did not fight.
Absolutely.
For that opportunity for us.
Absolutely.
Yes. So we just think, America just opened its doors, and then we walk in through them. No. It came in through the struggles of our brothers and sisters over here.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, thinking about this, and we have talked about colonialism in Africa.
Yeah.
The ignorance is there also on the side of Black Americans. They don't know, again we are generalizing here, that Africans on the continent, they also suffered colonialism and they struggled against it. And before that, there was the slave trade, of course. A lot of African societies suffered the slave raids,
Yes.
And
because the history, which is his story, tells them that they came and then the people were sold to them. I always ask anybody who really believes that story, that people were sold from Africa to these countries. At that time, there was something like a deed of sales that people had for every transaction that they had. If they could show us the deed of sales that they had with the Africans, maybe that would convince me, because I still believe there was no deed of sales, which means there was nothing as anybody was sold. Because going back to the story that I could hear from my grandparents and great-grandparents handed down oral stories, they were forcefully taken from them. They were ripped up from their families. Or they looked at the healthiest and they ripped up the healthiest from their families. Yes, so that is what they did. That is my understanding. Yes, I don't. There was they call it slave trade. There was no trade. It's normal to come into an African family, or an African family comes into your house and give you a gift. So they will say they bought you with toothpaste. No. As you come into the African's house, they give you food. So it's normal for them to think that you giving them the toothpaste is a gift for you to experience their culture. They did not receive the toothpaste from you because they wanted to sell their brother or sister. No. It wasn't a trade. It wasn't a trade in that nature.
Yeah, that's a very good point. as you say, coming from the oral history that
Yes.
you've heard, you know, people were forcibly taken out.
Oh yes, it was
Yeah.
brutal. Yes.
Yeah, but then the narrative that you hear among, you know, Black Americans generally is, oh, you sold us into slavery.
That is
That's
what
very
they
unfortunate.
that is what they have been told.
Yeah, it's
And you
very
don't
unfortunate.
we cannot blame them for
Right.
for seeing it that way.
Absolutely.
Yes, but
Absolutely.
it needs this conversation.
Yeah.
It needs this
Yeah.
kind of communication for them to understand
Yeah.
that
Yeah. It was
what
not.
we know from
Yeah.
our own oral history, that it wasn't, and nobody was sold.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the African societies themselves, many of them were just victims. You know, some
Yes.
chiefs, you know, engaged in, you know, enterprises like this, but the majority of the Africans, they were themselves victims. Just like you said, people coming in and taking, you know, the strongest members of the
Some
family.
chiefs were also taken into slavery.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
There were many Southern African chiefs who were taken into slavery. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. You've heard us talk, and it was all spontaneous, just a conversation. We hope we have raised some issues. We hope we have been able to raise issues that might impel you to say something. Feel free to do so in the comments section below this video. That's it for today. Goodbye.